Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi was born in Kyoto in 1927. He was forced to work in a military factory when World War II broke out. When the war ended in 1945, he was free to study law at Waseda University. 2 years in, his grandfather suffered a stroke. His plans derailed. Yamauchi was called upon to take over the family company, Nintendo. It would be a lie if I said I was enthusiastic about taking over Nintendo. I was young, and I had mixed feelings. But in front of me, I had a family business with no head, and all its employees waiting to know what was going to happen to them. Under Yamauchi, every product had to have his approval. He sometimes appeared reckless, but proved himself to be a brilliant strategist and leader. He secured the license to make Disney playing cards, which propelled Nintendo to the top of the market. However, realizing just how narrow the card industry was, he knew Nintendo had to broaden its horizons. He refocused under the notion that Nintendo was a family business. He established a new department where promoted janitor Gunpei Yokoi would go on to design numerous primitive electronics. Nintendo brought arcade cabinets, such as Radar Scope, Sheriff, and Space Fever to the United States, but without a killer app, interest was lukewarm. Yamauchi looked back on his earliest success with the Disney license. What would it take to become the Disney of video games? Yamauchi was confident that putting faith in another daydreamer, Shigeru Miyamoto, would pay off. Miyamoto and Yokoi came up with Donkey Kong, a resounding success and gaming landmark. Yamauchi then set his sights on the home console market. At the time, Atari was the industry leader, allowed the market to be flooded with low-grade titles, which led to the infamous video game crash. This was Yamauchi's riskiest move yet, but Yamauchi understood the customer, how they wanted a quality brand that they could trust. It was a natural move for Yamauchi to devise the Nintendo Seal of Approval, which is still used today. The Famicom, or the Nintendo Entertainment System, wore it proudly, and the public's faith in video games was restored. More powerful 16-bit consoles like the Sega Genesis entered the fray. Sega passed Nintendo for a time with its cool kid image, but Yamauchi had no interest in compromising principles just to take back market share. He answered with the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, reclaimed the throne by continuing the focus on quality. The Sony PlayStation, a new 32-bit competitor, took off quickly in the East, then took North America by storm. Yamauchi didn't feel the need to react immediately, however. The Super Nintendo's Donkey Kong Country looked just as impressive despite the 16-bit hardware. While the new era ushered in compact discs, Yamauchi wanted Nintendo to stay with cartridges. Part of this was the aftertaste of abortive business deals with Sony and Philips. Developers were not pleased. Square, headlined by Final Fantasy, were creating advanced CGI cutscenes for their latest titles, which required large amounts of storage. Titles originally slated for the Nintendo 64. Yamauchi's insistence on cartridges proved to be a mistake. The Nintendo 64 did initially succeed wildly. Its first-party titles, Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, were gaming milestones, but lack of third-party support resulted in sluggish sales later on. Consequently, Sony firmly established itself and followed with the Sony PlayStation 2. To make matters worse, tech giant Microsoft was looking to make an entry as well. Yamauchi was prideful, but willing to admit fault. Nintendo adopted disc-based technology, though in a compromised form. Nintendo Optical Discs. With the GameCube, Nintendo's in-house focus would once again be high-quality, family-friendly titles. As Yamauchi expected, Microsoft's Xbox wasn't particularly popular in Japan, but Nintendo was unable to foresee how well the Xbox would resonate with Western audiences. Mature titles like Microsoft's flagship first-person shooter, Halo, made waves in the States. There have always been differences between players in Asia and those in North America and Europe. I think those differences are becoming more clear. Sales of GameCube software fell short in North America and Europe last year, and I believe that's due to the popularity of violent video games on other consoles. Nintendo had their work cut out for them, but Yamauchi was growing old and tired. He did not have the energy to fight yet another battle. He turned to tech wizard Satoru Iwata to take the reins. In his statement on Iwata's appointment, he stressed that Iwata was chosen with regard to his technical acumen in both hardware and software. He somewhat surprisingly opined that an executive, regardless of his vast successes, is fundamentally an executive who doesn't intimately understand our products. He had all but referred to Iwata as a special talent, and demonstrated a keen sense of why a soulless bureaucrat would be a poor choice. Yamauchi stepped down, feeling secure in his choice of heir. 3 years later, the once formidable Yamauchi passed away. By nearly all accounts, the man was considered harsh, brazen, and unforgiving. The public knew little of him, as he allowed Miyamoto to serve as the face of the company, and what little gamers knew about him was difficult to relate to. with many regarding him as a mere businessman. Yet it was Yamauchi's foresight and willingness to bet the company on a fresh market, on video games, on Gunpei Yokoi, on Shigeru Miyamoto, on Satoru Iwata, as well as an unyielding dedication to quality and family-oriented games that was responsible for not only the Nintendo we know today, but perhaps the entire video game industry. Iwata provided a fitting epitaph. The entire Nintendo group will carry on the spirit of Mr. Yamauchi by honoring in our approach to entertainment the sense of value he has taught us, that there is merit in doing what is different, and at the same time, by changing Nintendo in accordance with changing times. So the next time you're feeling nostalgic over the glory days of Mario and Link, perhaps save some of that thanks for the man who led the company behind them. He might not have had his hands on the creative aspects, but it was his instincts and eye for quality that pushed them out the door.